gentlemen, please take your seats as the event is about to begin.
Mesdames et messieurs, veuillez prendre place puisque la séance débutera dans quelques instants.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm just going to give you just a minute to kind of settle. I literally had to run here I was hosting a side event upstairs on private-public partnerships. So I'm super energized because it was actually a great room. We discussed some real nuts and bolts. We discussed some fantastic topics around how to mobilize action. And now I'm back here and I'm even more energized to be here. So I hope you all had some really meaningful conversations during lunch, or at least some really meaningful food. And we're now heading to the last slot of the Business and Biodiversity Forum. And for the past few months, the Secretariat has been working with the business and biodiversity community to develop a common message that can be shared with both ministers and delegations at the high-level segment. It's incredibly important. The work was coordinated by the Business for Nature Coalition and drew on inputs from several organizations received along the past couple of months. We would like to really deeply thank these organizations for their support and leadership, and we would like to thank Business for Nature for their leadership in rallying businesses in support of the COP15 and post-2020 framework. And I have great pleasure in welcoming Eva Zabe from Business for Nature and hashtag Make It Mandatory.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much. My name's Eva Zabe. I'm the Executive Director of Business for Nature. And I'm delighted that so many of you are in the room, given that it's 2-0 for Argentina right now. And they're supposed to be negotiating Target 15 next door, although I understand that there are some delays. So as we kick off here, and I know we've asked you this possibly other times, but who in this room has already been to a CBD COP before? Can you raise your hand, please? It's a little cluster there. Not that many of you. Who, therefore, is it your first time at a CBD COP? Amazing. So we've estimated that about 90% of the business and financial community here in Montreal is their first CBD COP. And that's an incredibly powerful signal to all the negotiators and policymakers, as well as the other stakeholders, that finally nature and biodiversity are on the business and financial agendas. So leading companies have come here to COP15 with very clear asks: stronger regulation on nature, full reform of environmentally harmful subsidies and incentives, and a global goal to halt and reverse nature loss by 2030. Why? Because there will be no economy, there will be no business on a dead planet. Ultimately, we all rely on nature, on natural resources, and we've lost that direct connection and understanding of the true value of nature to societies, to our economies, to our families, and to our businesses. And so now we need governments to adopt an ambitious global biodiversity framework that will provide the political certainty, and it will require businesses to contribute to halting and reversing nature loss in this decade. Now, over the last few days, I don't know about you, but I've heard many companies that are showing that they're willing to scale up their efforts and investments to protect, restore, and sustainably use nature. We've also heard those companies asking governments to step up and use COP15 to send a strong signal to the rest and the full business and finance community that the status quo is over, that regulation on companies need to change, and that we need large-scale action to tackle the nature crisis. Businesses stand ready to support with the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework. In fact, there is no way of implementing the Global Biodiversity Framework without business and finance. And there are 4 key things that companies can already do now to take action: assess and prioritize their impacts and dependencies on nature, commit to setting transparent, science-based targets, transform their operations and value chains to reduce their negative impacts and to boost the positive ones, and disclose nature-related information and call for policy ambition. So just also in this room, you're here, you've made the effort to be here. In the room, how many of you have already started to assess, commit, transform, or disclose nature-related information? Who's already started to do it, or are you supporting companies that are? Okay, I would say that's a good majority. That's great, because we know that companies are, but unfortunately the voluntary action is just not enough to reach the scale and speed that we need. It's not enough to create the level playing field, to accelerate business action to reverse nature loss in this decade. So to reach the Sustainable Development Goals and remain within planetary boundaries, we now need ambitious regulation and requirements from governments. That will drive the action by policy, the collective action to scale and speed up those transformative changes in how businesses operate, including through innovation and investment. It will also change how investors and consumers access information and make decisions. So now, as was mentioned just before, working with many organizations in the room that the CBD Secretariat and Bianca's in the room brought together, all of us, we worked on some important outcomes from the Business and Biodiversity Forum, which is a reflection of where collectively we stand in terms of the specific policy asks from business to the policymakers here. And there are 8 of them, which I'll run through quite quickly, and then I'll test you on them. Yes? No? Just checking the energy after lunch here. All right. How many did I say there were? 8. Okay. I see. You are listening. Number 1, what do we need? We need to adopt a clear, simple, and rallying mission to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by 2030. That would set the ambition to drive actions across all stakeholders. Businesses need and expect governments to provide that direction and the urgency at the highest political level to drive action. That was number 1. Number 2, integrate biodiversity into all decision making. We need to ensure that biodiversity is mainstreamed across the whole of government, as well as across the private sector, by adopting the recommendations of the CBD long-term approach on mainstreaming. Number 3, make business an actor for positive change. By adopting smart targets, relevant and actionable by businesses, and addressing the drivers of biodiversity loss, and then translating them to a national level with business action plans, governments can really engage business. Number 4, require all large businesses and financial institutions to assess and disclose impacts and dependencies on biodiversity. Because without understanding these impacts and dependencies, governments, businesses, investors, and consumers are flying blind. By making assessment and disclosure mandatory by 2030, governments would ensure fair competition, access to data, faster standardization, tracking of progress, information for investors, consumers, and local communities, and it will inform policies. We need that information to drive action. Number 5, align all public and private financial flows to a nature-positive world. Transformative change cannot be achieved without proper incentive mechanisms and financial resources. The resource mobilization strategy should adopt a holistic approach that includes increasing green finance, but also greening mainstream finance, importantly, and promoting the rapid and effective development and implementation of innovative financial solutions. Number 6, ensure the implementation of strong conservation goals and targets. The sustainable use of natural resources, restoration, and regeneration are key to our future sustainable growth. Yet, to create a nature-positive world, we need to scale up effective conservation, protection, and management of key areas for biodiversity. We need to respect the rights-based approach, and the business community stands ready to support governments in protecting at least 30% of all land and sea, including by respecting no-go areas. Inclusive solutions are needed that respect the rights of indigenous peoples and local communities and take into account the impacts on communities. 7, reinforce the linkages between climate change and biodiversity objectives. We know these are two sides of the same coin. To tackle climate change, we need nature as our ally, and there's no way we can reverse nature loss without a stable climate. Number 8, support biodiversity-based research and innovation. This can make important contributions to conservation goals while creating socioeconomic opportunities for sustainable livelihoods. We need that capacity building, and we need the access and benefit sharing frameworks that should be made simpler and more workable. And 9, just joking. There is no doubt we need collaboration. I was just checking that you were listening. There is no doubt that we need collaboration across all parts of society. The CBD has been very clear. This is a whole of society approach, and it's a framework for all. All stakeholders need to be part of this solution, part of the implementation if we want to be successful. I've been inspired by this week by so many conversations I've had also with youth, indigenous communities, businesses, conservation NGOs, and many more. It really feels like we are making progress, even if the progress in the negotiation rooms is tricky, to say the least, depending on what they're discussing. But as a community, we are coming together. And while some might be concerned, and understandably so, of the role of the private sector, the truth is we can't deliver a successful global agreement on nature without business and finance. They need to be at the table, especially when they're asking for greater ambition and wanting to partner for the solutions. As I said, companies need to transform their business models. They need to invest in protecting and restoring nature, and they need to use their skills and expertise to support others in doing so. Now, change only happens when voices unite. And by speaking together now through these key asks, representing many of us in the business community, we're sending ministers and governments that are attending COP15 a very clear message and a mandate. As it was the case with the Paris Agreement on climate, an ambitious, clear, and enforceable international agreement will help us realize nature's true value to livelihoods, society, and our global economy. Ultimately, all of us are adults, as far as I know, and we as adults in this room have really the only responsibility. It's our responsibility to take the right decisions now for generations to come. Thank you so much.
Eva, thank you so much for that. And how many were there? I heard a 9. And really, you've been tirelessly campaigning for a very long time now. I hope you can get some rest after this. And let me introduce you actually to our next facilitator, Ms. Joyty Matur-Philip, who is that's a long title, Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee and head of the INC Secretariat on Plastic Pollution. And for those of you who are not familiar, Joyty led the work on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework since its inception in 2019 until her recent appointment. I have great honor, and please join me in applauding Joyty as she comes onto the stage.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. So thank you so much for being with us here today and for committing to biodiversity, and which is why you are here. And I saw so many new hands up today, unbelievable. This is a completely different meeting than a different COP than we had 4 years ago. And so I'm so pleased that we have so much commitment from industry, from private sector to be here. And I'm hoping, and now I will be naughty, and Bianca, I'm not looking at you. I'm hoping that all of you will now also turn your attention to the plastic issue, because that's an extremely, extremely urgent area we need to take action. But to go back to our own work, may I invite Adrian Giger? I hope I pronounced your name right. I'm terrible at names. So I hope I've pronounced your name right. He is the Managing Director, L'Occitane Provence, and Group Sustainability Officer for L'Occitane. Can we give him a big applause? Geraldine Vahio, who is the Sustainability Program Director for Caring. Another big applause. And finally, Gauthier Keru, Managing Director for Natural Capital Mirova. You couldn't have given me more difficult names to pronounce. Thank you. So, as we all know, thank you so much for joining us. As we all know, biodiversity is the foundation for life, for us, for all that we do. We are not only our economy is embedded in biodiversity and natural systems, but we also depend considerably on the flow of ecosystems, goods, and services. So we know that, and I think you know that, and you know all the risks and dependencies associated with nature and nature loss. So I understand that you have come here to make a big announcement, a very big announcement of an exciting new initiative. So I hand over to you. Which one of you would like to make the announcement?
So I will speak first. Thank you, GOT. And we are very pleased to be together, so as Caring, L'Occitane and Mirova, to announce a new innovative mechanism for nature-based solution, which is called the Climate Fund for Nature. This is a 300 million euro fund with 140 million euros already committed. And essentially, the Climate Fund for Nature is mobilizing resources from the luxury fashion sector and the beauty sector to protect and restore nature with a particular focus on women empowerment. So we at Caring, we initiated the fund, and we were able to unlock this level of finance because we do value nature. We do recognize all the services that nature provides to us. And we've been actually investing in and supporting the protection and restoration of nature for over a decade now. So this is the natural next step, I would say. So, and also our thinking beyond the setting up of this fund was that we, luxury fashion and beauty, we could bundle forces. We could come together in a high-level and ambitious financial mechanism to support collectively nature at scale. And that's the idea behind it. So with the launch of the Climate Fund for Nature, today we are proud to welcome our first partner, L'Occitane, and also to let you know that this fund is open to other partners in the luxury fashion and beauty sector. So please join us. And the fund is managed by Mirova, and Gauthier will tell us in more details about it. So basically, what the fund will do, it will support NGOs and project developers dedicated to protecting and restoring ecosystems, as well as farmers in their transition to regenerative practices. It will deliver carbon credits while generating co-benefits for the communities with a specific emphasis on women. In terms of geographies, the projects will be mainly located in countries where we investors source our ingredients and key materials. And of course, the project's progress will be monitored to ensure that they deliver measurable outcomes for climate, for nature, and for livelihoods. As we all know, there is a scientific consensus on the fact that we need to scale up financing for nature-based solutions. And if the world is to meet its target for climate, biodiversity, and land degradation, we have to multiply by 3 this financing by 2030 and by 4 times by 2050. So we have to start now, and the Climate Fund for Nature fills this important role for our economy. And I will leave the floor now to Adrien to give more details about L'Occitane.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm super excited to be with you, all of you today, to share with you this exciting adventure. Thank you a lot, Mirova and Kering. This adventure, I mean, is fantastic, and I really appreciate. I feel proud to be part of it. For us, joining this fund was literally a no-brainer. I mean, not only is it in our DNA to take care of nature, I mean, we are a natural cosmetic brand, but this is a necessity if we want to achieve what we have set up as a goal. Last year at the IUCN, we have shared our biodiversity strategy towards a nature-positive world. We are embracing the SBTN framework, and we know that we need to go beyond our value chain. So at the end of the day, if we want this not just to be a talk, but a real action, when there's no way out, we need to invest into this kind of fund. And as you said, to be honest, this is not enough. This is just the beginning. We have to go even more further. So a question I had when I came here is, why only few of us? I mean, we are not the only companies who have a biodiversity strategy. We are not the only companies who are embracing the SBTN framework. So why only few of us are investing into this kind of fund? As it was mentioned earlier, the cost of not acting is more than the cost of acting. And we all know that. But the question is, who will pay at the end? So maybe one thing that we have in common, Kering and L'Occitane, that made us natural to invest into this kind of fund is, maybe it's because we are a family-owned business. Because for us, it's natural to think long-term. And for us, well, even if it's not our generation who will pay for it, it's the next one. So it'll be us anyway. We have to think long-term as a family-owned business. We have to think of what are we going to transmit to the future generation. How can a company still be viable in 50 years, in 100 years? So perhaps after being here for a couple of days, I have one maybe call for action. So at least, I call for family-owned businesses. Maybe you have this particular responsibility because you, more than any others, can think long-term. And maybe more than ever, the world needs us.
Thank you so much. And that's a really strong call for action. And I hope that you can take this call back to your companies and industries and think of joining this very strong call for action by L'Occitane and Kering. And now, Gauthier, over to you. In terms of time frame, can you share with us what are the next steps? What is the scope of, this initiative, and what is, where are you going to be working around with this initiative? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, we are very proud, and really the credit goes to Kering and L'Occitane for making this initiative possible. And in terms of next step or what's coming, first of all, it's important to mention that while at Mirova we have been managing funds for natural capital for many years, we were really impressed by the ability for Caring L'Occitane Group to make decisions pretty fast, to act fast, and the fund is really being implemented now and will start operation in beginning of 2023. So we will really hit the ground running and start the funding of project right now while onboarding partners and projects throughout the years to come. And it's really also important to mention that the fund has the capital that is brought has a long-term horizon. It is patient capital that is non-speculative, that is risk tolerant, and hence that is very catalytic to enable new projects and new nature-based solutions on the ground to be developed. And so we will support projects all around the world in priority in countries where the partners, the investors source their raw materials and beyond, and really focused on nature-based solutions, so land restoration, mangrove protection, forest protection, and these types of projects. And hopefully for COP16, we will already be able to show a large portfolio of projects and be accountable also for this initiative. It's good to announce a new initiative, but also to deliver on the ground and report on what we do. So looking forward also to the next stage at COP16.
Thank you so much. And I think you have actually hit on the most important part of these initiatives and launches that happen at the margins of all the COPs, whether it's here or at climate change, where we don't really see much follow-up after that. So it will be really, really good if we come to COP16. And I'm sure I will call on you for the INC process in plastics to also come and tell us what you are doing to this fund. Thank you so much. And may we give them a big, big hand of applause for their fantastic work. Thank you so much. I now... Okay, so we can continue. Okay, so in the meantime, maybe I can just talk with you, Gauthier. Adrian. What you were going to tell me a little bit about plastics in our little conversation. So we'll use this 1 minute to do that and then go back to the real panel.
With pleasure. Yes. So what can I tell you? As a company, of course, we are FMCG. Plastic is a huge problem for us because, knowing that maybe some of our products will be seen in the ocean and be degraded in the ocean and then eaten by the fish and then actually eaten by me again. This is horrible. You know how harmful it is, and being an FMCG company, you're part of it. You're part of the problem. So we have to rethink completely our value chain to get away from that. We have short-term commitments. By 2025, reducing by 10% of our total plastic production. We are growing at a 10% rate every year. So reducing by 10% versus 2020, this is huge. It make us really rethink, the packaging of our main products, find solutions to get away from it. But this is not enough. We need to think also 2030 and longer term, how we can completely get away from this problem. My dream is one day, the packaging that I will use for my products, we can throw it in the ocean and we will feed the fish. So it will, nourish the cycle again.
Well, I think that's a really good dream. And in the meantime, we should look at all of our supply chains to see how we can get rid of unnecessary plastic and single-use plastic. That is something that we can do. It's a problem we've created. And I think in my generation, and we can fix it in yours probably. So that will be really good. And now I have the pleasure of introducing to you my former boss and the executive secretary of the CBD, and a very inspirational woman, Miss Elizabeth Maruma. Please give her a big hand. It is true.
What do you want me to say?
Well, you are supposed to deliver a statement. An inspirational and aspirational statement.
Really?
Yes. Just as aspirational and inspirational you are to us.
You see, to speak to these distinguished people here, and on the second day, it means everything has been said. And I don't think there's anything better to add than what has already been said. But since I've been asked to speak, I don't think I'm short of words. I can speak. But I will begin, before I read what has been prepared, first to sincerely thanks the business community. In the past few years, especially this during period of COVID, you have made wonders. Wonders in terms of helping us to get the business, first to get the business on board when it comes to dealing with biodiversity issues, and getting the business to understand that those businesses, although they provide opportunities both for business and others, but there are also risks there. There are also impacts which you need to take them into account to be able to continue to depend on your business and to continue to be profitable. And especially if the business dealing with biodiversity or ecosystem issues, is it agricultural production, food systems, fisheries, forestry, and the like. We all depend on that. It's not just the business only depending. I also depend on the same ecosystem, the same biodiversity, each one of us. We want food, but what type of food? It should not be the food which is going to kill all of us the next day. So this is where, again, business comes in. Those agricultural production, fisheries mechanism, are they sustainable to continue, not only to sustain the life of the, or the well-being of the population, but also to sustain that ecosystem to continue to produce. And as we do that production, what does it contribute to the air we breathe, which again, we all depend on? That when we deal with, again, food systems, agricultural production, we need water. Where are the sources of water? Are we considering that? Yes, rain will get rain, but we also know a lot of irrigation takes place. Where is this water coming from? And the water we get also in our taps, it's not just where it comes from, how clean it is, and how much is still there to continue to sustain the growing population as the time goes by. We all talk of climate change, and we know you business, you have already done a lot as far as taking action on climate, and that is really appreciated. We are also delighted that you are also realizing that actions on climate itself, we will not even reach than 1.5 degrees we are all looking forward. Because to be able to reach that, again, we are dependent on that sustainability of the ecosystem and biodiversity. So delighted that you are also realizing the link and the connection, intrinsic connection between biodiversity loss and climate change, that each is dependent on the other. We cannot deal with solutions to one and ignoring the other, because that silos approach is what has brought us to where we are, where the scientists are giving us all those gloomy, scary statistics. And any report you pick today, I don't know which report gives us an encouraging figure or an encouraging picture. Even where business, you are telling us 50% of the global GDP is dependent on nature, it means also your businesses are at risk as the result of biodiversity loss. So that's not an opportunity. There are risks there, which then we need to look at them to be able to continue that, to operate. And we need to see the business in your operation, that nature biodiversity becomes part of the decision making of your business operations, part of your strategies. And it's not, we are not saying you look at only biodiversity in isolation from other environmental issues. We cannot ignore climate, we cannot ignore pollution. And I just came in as George was talking about plastics. We cannot ignore that. The oceans are choked with plastics. And that's why we want to get that healthy protein, enjoying the fish. But yet the coral reefs, 50% have disappeared. So literally all report, and yet we are dependent on that. So we can see where the risk is, and that risk is also to your businesses. We are benefiting from your businesses, so it's also important for you to manage the risk, manage the impacts, so that both the business and us human beings, we can continue to depend on that. And we also, as society, the citizens, probably we need also to put pressure to the business, particularly those dependent on biodiversity. Pressure in terms of our choices. Do I choose to eat red meat every day? Should I be bothered where this cotton of my dress comes from? Was that cotton produced sustainably? Or was it as the result of child labor? Or was it as the result of destroying hectares of forest to be able to produce that cotton? So I think we will begin also another campaign to reach out to the citizens so that their choices dictates the market. And the market then will have to respond to the citizen choices. And that will also help in ensuring that we all look at the impacts aspect differently. Delighted here to hear, and I'm seeing Eva there, Business for Nature really going out, getting the business on board, even financial institutions on board, to put pressure on the negotiators that we know there is a target there which is looking at the operations of the business. The business operations which are dependent on nature, it becomes part of mainstreaming in the decision making. Yes, we want to assess the risks, the impacts, the dependence. We are ready to report. You are ready to disclose. You negotiators as governments, make it mandatory. That's a big message coming from the business, because historically, normally is government putting pressure on other stakeholders, governments putting pressure on governments, do that, do that. But we have seen a completely different narrative here, where actually the business is the one putting pressure and calling for mandatory disclosure. This really is a different development. And delighted now we are also seeing increasing number of tools, metrics, data to help business to actually be able to do that assessment, to be able to report and disclose. So it's no longer an excuse to say, oh, we don't know how. the how to report, what data to follow. There are too many out there. Which one do we pick? It's already existing. ISB has done a lot. NGS have done a lot. Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosure is developing a framework which will align with the Global Biodiversity Framework. So no excuse. So those businesses which have not begun to mainstream their operations into their business models, into their decision making, I hope those who have begun, we can also bring them on board, empower, because we know capacity development need to be part of the package of mainstreaming. We cannot assume that all businesses are fully aware of what needs to be done. But among us, they are experts. And let's us not be selfish with what we know. Let us not be mean with what we know. Let us empower that knowledge, empower that expertise to those who are just coming on board, because the more, the merrier, and the more we really change the trajectory, and thus hopefully will help us to change the statistics we are getting today down the road as we get into 2030, halting and reversing the loss of biodiversity. So Jyoti, for all the businesses here, I can only say thank you, thank you. You have proven many things which have never happened in the history of the convention and probably in the history of our understanding biodiversity. We've seen the business community full on board, putting pressure on governments. We know you are acting already and you are ready to upscale and ready to move and make that difference. We depend on you. Our lives depend on business. We cannot ignore that fact. But please, let it be sustainable. Sustainable production so that what we consume is also sustainable. Thank you.
So to your point that this is a very different COP, Ava had requested people to put up their hands for the first time attending this COP. And most of the people in the room are attending the COP for the first time. So I think we need to give an applause to them for attending this. So thank you very much. And please do take Elizabeth's a call of action. So that's a second call of action that you have had in this session already back home with you. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you for making time to be with us.
Pleasure.
I will now continue and invite the others.
Yes. Once again, many, many thanks. Delighted we have partners on board. Call for action. Action begins with you, me, us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. So now we're going to go on to the next panel where I will invite some of our distinguished people here to come and give us an update on what they're doing and what they're thinking about committing to biodiversity. Adrian is with me all through, and so maybe he can also take over the facilitation because we're both sitting next to each other for this whole panel. So may I invite Dax Da Silva. He is the executive chair, Lightspeed, and founder of Age of Union. Anouk Trudel, who is the managing director of and CEO of Viola Canada. Welcome. Jun Deng, President and CEO, Bank of China. Jason Stora, CEO, Aviva Canada. So we have a very, very distinguished panel here, and very, geographically and business-wise spread across different streams of work. So I would like to ask each of you to share why you are with us here today and what the companies you represent are doing for biodiversity and how an ambitious GBF will help them to speed up and scale up. So I will not start with you, Adrian, because you've already spoken. So I will now start with Dax. Would you like to start? Thanks.
Thank you. Is it on? So I'm Dax Da Silva, founder of Age of Union. Also the founder of a tech company actually based here in Montreal called Lightspeed. Founded Lightspeed 17 years ago. It's now on the Toronto Stock Exchange and New York Stock Exchange. And recently started Age of Union Alliance because conservation and biodiversity is near to my heart. That started when I was a teen, and I joined the protests at Clayoquot Sound, the War of the Woods. And I remember crossing Vancouver Island through hours and hours of clear cuts to join the protest. And I knew that in those moments that later in life, when I had the resources, when I had the experience, that I would fight for biodiversity and fight for our nature. And so that time is now. I was able to step down as CEO after 17 years and move into the chairman role at Lightspeed and started Age of Union with a $40 million gift. And because we're operating at startup speed at Age of Union, we've allocated the $40 million across 10 different biodiversity projects, conservation projects around the world. So there's 4 in Canada, 2 in Quebec, 2 in BC, where I'm originally from. I live now in Montreal. There's 3 in the most biodiverse equatorial forests in the Peruvian Amazon, in the Congo, and in Indonesia. 2 in the Caribbean, in Trinidad and Haiti. And also we have a ship with Sea Shepherd for ocean conservation called the MY Age of Union. And so I've visited in this last year 8 of the 10 projects to really get an understanding of what it takes in these places to save species, to save threatened ecosystems, because we're approaching it with real humility. We don't understand, all the social, political, economic contexts of what it takes in these individual places. So it's a new journey for me, but as a business person getting into this area, it's an exciting one, and I feel like conservation we should understand as the frontline fight against climate change. We have to fight for nature, but also that fight will help us in this greater struggle against climate change. And I think an ambitious GBF, it helps these kinds of initiatives, these boots on the ground conservation efforts, because it brings in the support of industry, it brings in the support of government to support these projects that can succeed. We can make this the decade of action. We can make this the turnaround that it needs to be in these next couple of years before 2030. We can reach those goals.
Thank you so much. And I think you are working in some of the most important forests of the world, Amazon, Indonesia, and Congo, which are basically going to be the lungs of the planet for the next years. And if we can understand, I used to live in Indonesia and work on forests there, in fact, deforestation and palm oil. And so it's a very interesting journey to do that, and especially from the private sector to go into this. My life has been about this work, but for you to go from private sector to our side, it's a very, very interesting journey. And I do occasionally look at what Sea Shepherd is doing, so I do know about that. So I occasionally find it online and look at their work. So Anouk, may I ask you what you are doing?
For sharing. Not very COVID-19, but still, thank you. So you were saying?
So I would like to ask you the same question. What are the company you represent doing with biodiversity, and what would you like to see in an ambitious GBF?
Well, we have 4 wishes. First, thank you very much for having me here. It is a pleasure to be welcoming all these people to our beautiful city, I believe that we share. Yes. Born and raised, still love this. So we do believe that business can make a difference and put together their capacities in terms of innovation, acceleration in solution deployment, fundings, and creation of both global coalitions and local ecosystems. We do have 4 wishes. The first one is, and I believe it's been expressed in the last 2 days. I was actually 3 days. It's Tuesday. I was here Saturday. Is the mobilization. First, the businesses really want, and we've proven it today and over the last 3 days, is to mobilize and be present and be active. Veolia has been very active, where we have integrated nature-based solutions in many of our sites, and we have 130 priority sites that have been identified where we want to and will continue to put nature-based solutions. We also have deployed zero, I'm not sure about the pronunciation in English, but phytos, might be phyto, I'm not sure, and ecological management solutions in the 26,000 hectare of occupied land we have through our various projects that we manage. The second wish is, sorry, I'm reading my notes here, is that the decisions and official documents which will come out of COP15 clearly highlight the fact that business by essence is not a polluter. Activities that businesses do are polluting, which is totally different. We want to be a positive player, and we want this to be reflected in the document, that we can contribute in a positive manner with reinforced policies and enhanced transparency on disclosure and the common goal of biodiversity preservation. We also want, and if you will let me continue with my notes, to have frameworks that prioritize the results of what we do and not the quantity of information we can produce on what we do. This is very different. It's a question of what gets measured gets done. Okay? And we'd like to have common language and methodologies to assess the organization footprint on biodiversity. So those are our 4 wishes.
Thank you so much. I think common methodologies is something that Elizabeth already spoke to, and so hopefully that is something that that is coming out slowly, and we will be developing. And up to COP16, you might get more information on things like that. The others are also, mobilizing. I think it was.
Mobilization of businesses. So this is an example.
And this is an example, exactly. And it's only growing. Yes. And, more and more like-minded people will come into this, and like-minded businesses will come in. But it is actually a bigger catch if we are able to convert more and more industry and private sector towards this. So I think that's another wish that could happen very easily. And
the less business-minded businesses.
Business-minded, yeah, exactly. So now may I ask Jun Deng, if you would like to give us a little bit of your background and, what your company is doing for biodiversity, and also what is your wish for an ambitious GBF? Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. I arrived in Canada just 2 months ago, appointed as a CEO and the president of Bank of China, Canada. I'm not the CEO and the president of Bank of China Group, so Canada. And then, but I have been working for Bank of China Group for more than 30 years. And our bank, the Bank of China, has been putting the biodiversity at the forefront of decision-making process. Supporting green financing has become one of Bank of China key strategies, and we have been investing or funding projects which enhance or restore biodiversity. We are among one of the first international banks to issue biodiversity-themed green bonds. The proceeds have been used to support biodiversity-related green projects such as terrestrial and aquatic biodiversity conservation, environmentally sustainable management of living natural resources, and land use. And recently, we supported of we made a loan to the projects related to the restoration of ecosystem of Yellow River, which is the second largest, longest river in Asia. And then we help the stakeholders and our clients to partner with the local governments. We call this a public-private project to prevent the soil erosion, restore ecosystems, and improve the local production of food. In our group, we have made biodiversity-related requirements part of our credit policies for over 70 industries. We've also included biodiversity conservation into our client ESG risk assessment. And we understand it's really challenging for small, medium-sized company or farmers to access or the global supply chain. So we developed, the group developed, we call cross-border, SME cross-border matchmaking platform, which benefit the SMEs or the farmers, especially the food producers, to the global supply chain. We have held over more than 100 matchmaking conferences around the globe, offering services to more than 50,000 Chinese and foreign enterprises, including farmers from 126 countries and regions, including Canada. So we are very proud that we help these SMEs and then also the farmers, and then to tackle the food crisis. And I believe this is also related to the biodiversity initiative. So Bank of China will strive to make greater contribution to the preservation of biodiversity and curbing of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your for telling us what you're doing, and it seems very interesting on the work of on the biodiversity green bonds. It's something that is very new, and it's and especially how the proceeds are used from it, and I think it's so amazing that you're doing this for the ecosystem of the Yellow River. And I think SMEs are also a very important part of the business world that kind of get left behind. So if they can also be brought into this conversation and helped, it is, I think it's going to be very fruitful for biodiversity conservation. So thank you for that. And may I ask Jason, what is your company doing for biodiversity, and what do you hope for in an ambitious GBF?
Thank you. So Aviva Canada is one of the largest property and casualty insurers in Canada. So we see every day and every year the impact of climate change. In the 80s, the average cost of natural catastrophes to the Canadian insurance industry was about $50 million. For the last 3 years, it's been over $2 billion. And we think that trend's only going to continue. And if that trend does continue, then parts of the country and the businesses and individuals that live there will become uninsurable. And I don't think that's a problem that the government can or should step into. But I think it's something we need to try and prevent, reduce, mitigate, create resiliency. For economies to thrive, they need to be resilient. For businesses and individuals to succeed, to grow, to get better, they need healthy ecosystems and the biodiversity around them to be supported and encouraged, not reduced. And so, last year, Aviva created its biodiversity strategy. This year, in fact, yesterday, we issued our first biodiversity report. I was talking with one of my colleagues yesterday, Suresh, who said, when we started drafting this report, we wondered, would we have enough for 6 to 8 pages? And we didn't need to worry about that because there's volumes of material of things that we've done in the last year since we put that strategy out there, and we did it in a very transparent way because we're happy to be held accountable to it, and we know it's going to live and breathe and evolve. But we put that out there, and so for us, thinking about and focusing on ecosystems, on carbon capture, on biodiversity is a real way of us focusing within an overall climate and sustainability strategy what we do, because I think one of the things I'm quite conscious of is you can't do everything, so you need to break things down into manageable chunks. And I think quite often what I feel when I hear a lot of debate around whether it's biodiversity or broader climate challenges is it can be very easy to get overwhelmed. And I think what we've done quite well is try and break it down into where we can make a difference. So I'm really, really proud of the fact that we have a partnership with the World Wildlife Fund of Canada. And Megan and her brilliant team there have been amazing for us because they know more about how to, protect ecosystems and invest in areas and nature and help biodiversity far more than us. That's part of what they do. So, building partnerships with organizations that allow us to educate ourselves and then make a difference is really important. So we have the partnership with WWF. Globally, we've announced £100 million towards natural carbon capture, of which $23 million is earmarked for Canada. And we're just working through where we're going to invest that money next year. And then, as I said, we're very, very clear on where biodiversity sits within our overall ESG targets and commitments. And we're quite happy to be transparent and open about that. I think just to the last part of your question, for us, an ambitious global biodiversity framework and approach, what that will make us do is do more. It will make us go faster. It will make us not be satisfied. And one of the things I've said about what Aviva's done is I feel great about the small steps that Aviva's making, but I really hope that other companies and businesses and individuals look at what we do and they might say, well, that's great, good for Aviva, but we can do more, or we can do better, or we can do something that's different. Because I think, peer pressure and seeing what your colleagues around you do in any forum is always a good thing. It makes you, it pushes you to strive to want to do more. And I think in this space, that's why we take this so seriously, because I think we can make a difference in the areas and the partnerships where we're investing. But my hope is some of our peers and others in other industries look at us and just say, well, that's good, but we can't have Aviva taking all the limelight. We've got others, we can do more, we can do better.
I like that. I like sitting from here. I like do more, go faster and do better. So thank you very much for that. And I actually have a question for you. You started, no, I haven't forgotten you. This is a question, I haven't forgotten you. It's a clarification on what he said. It is, you said $2 billion in the last 2-3 years. Is it in Canada or overall globally?
Just Canada.
Wow, that's an amazing
in the last
figure.
few years, we've had headlines from different parts of the country talking about this was the second worst natural catastrophe event for the insurance industry, for the economies, or the most serious, and they don't even make the headlines. It's incredible.
Yeah. So resilience is what is very, very important for all of us. So now, Adrian, I circle back to you. I haven't forgotten you. So would you tell me what Lochitan is doing for biodiversity? I think we all know a lot about you, but maybe you can tell us a little bit more. And what would you like in an ambitious GBF?
Well, thank you. Because I have more stories to tell you about plastics. That's why
Yes,
I was eager
please,
to share.
please.
Um,
All stories about plastic are very welcome.
Wonderful. So, well, as you now know, L'Occitane Group is a natural cosmetic group. And so for us, it's natural to take care of the environment and biodiversity. And so one of the focus is to reduce our waste, to reduce our plastic consumption. I told you about the 10% goal that we have, but also we have a 40% goal. Actually, we're going to achieve it earlier by 2025 of recycled plastic used in all our plastic. But by 2030, we are aiming for 100% recycled. And we have in all our stores recycling like a bin or collecting thing that can collect all the packaging that we give. So we really like entering this like circular economy on plastic, which is crucial. And I believe if I just do one step further, I mean, we are part of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And globally speaking, that's how I believe we can have an impact, is being part of a coalition. Because, I mean, it's only collective action that will make us work together. And what you said about doing more will bring more people to join us. I think this is really, really resonates with me a lot. And that's the way we're thinking as well. On one other topic, which is not plastic, but I need to share it, sorry, that we at L'Occitane really focus on right now is regenerative agriculture. We have the chance to have a direct relationship with our producers of verbena, immortelle, almonds, shea butter. And actually, we are working with them to go away from like intensive monoculture that we've learned after World War II into regenerative agriculture. We have this because we are in a vertical, in a business that creates a lot of value from cultivating those ingredients. We have this ability to invest and to think long term. So partnering with our producers, investing with them, alongside with them, we are actually proving that regenerative agriculture in the long term is profitable. Is profitable because you need less water. Is profitable because the yield is better. Is profitable because you need less pesticide, or sometimes even no pesticide. You need less fertilizer. You can actually valorize the capture of carbon that you're using, that you're doing. So all this together, in the long term, when I say long term, is after 10 years or 7 years, which is a lot, but I mean, all relative, is not that long. After 7 years, it is profitable in many cases to, our regenerative agriculture is profitable and can be a solution to restore biodiversity and to have agriculture in general being part of the solution to restore biodiversity. And again, we are part of a coalition called OP2B, One Planet Business for Biodiversity. And our goal is really to scale regenerative agriculture, to show to the world that it is profitable and that is a solution that will help us to mitigate the climate crisis and to restore biodiversity. Regarding the GBF, I mean, one thing for me, and I think we said it all, but well, it's been said already, what gets measured gets done. It starts with that. Just that's the first and basic principle. As a business, this is more important than ever. I mean, we all have KPIs to follow. What gets measured gets done. So make it compulsory to assess and measure. I will say that's the most single important thing that we need to have.
I hope that the member states, the parties, hear you on that, on the measuring, and include it in the not the GBF, but at least a decision on monitoring and review that is also going on at the same time as the GBF. There are many decisions happening at the same time. So hopefully, I know that there is one on stakeholders and the action agenda that is, also being discussed. So maybe the review could come in through that, and Bianca could tell us more, perhaps. And so what Adrian was speaking about, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, is that WWF and Ellen MacArthur have launched a high ambition coalition for businesses to work on plastics. So that is something that is going to be hopefully part of our partnership for the next 2 years while we negotiate the new legal agreement. And on another note, on cosmetics, I did not actually know that there was microplastics in cosmetics, and that there was severe leakage when you put it on your skin till very recently. It really surprised me that it was there. So I know that L'Occitane has been doing a lot of work on, has actually never had microplastics in their cosmetics, and it's really good to hear about regenerative agriculture, which I'm sure we could do a case study for next time. So now I'm going to ask some questions, and Anup, may I start with you first? The intertwined crisis of pollution, climate change, and biodiversity loss are a threat to our livelihoods, our health, and our economy. And with the negotiations of GBF that are ongoing, and they're in an advanced stage, can you let us know what are your expectations right now?
Does this work? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So our expectations are actually very ambitious. I said earlier we have 4 wishes. Maybe I should say we want. Since we're private business, we're very often more on the want than the wish. But positive collaboration between all stakeholders. Someone earlier today talked about breaking the silos. So businesses are very often talking about breaking the silos internally. I think we think we have to break the silos between states, politics, the NGOs, the businesses, the investors, and the communities. So this is the first thing. Second is we have to work towards clear common goals with common language and common methodology so that we can really talk the same language, which also goes with the next one, which is about measuring the impact, the real impact. So what we call at Veolia, key impact indicators, which are not just about financials, but are about impact to what we refer as the purpose wheel, which is linked to the 17 United Nations goals. So around biodiversity, around climate change, around carbon reduction, etc. And finally, we believe that ambitious common engagement is required to act, not just words.
Thanks so much. And Adrian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, one thing I would like to add is on the ambition is, and I think it has been said before, the redirection of subsidies towards farmers and SME, I believe it's crucial. I'll mention something that is really important for us, which is regenerative agriculture. And at the end, it starts with the farmers. It cannot be something that big industrial are willing to push from their towers up, like Midtown in New York. Or it starts from the field, it starts from the ground, and it starts with the people that are actually doing things. So we cannot alone be part of the solution. We as like companies, banks need to be there, and well, you showed a great example with the Bank of China being involved with farmers and SME. but we also need governments, and we need redirection of subsidiaries towards those people.
Thanks. And I was going to come back to you, John, because what you talked about farmers and SME, you're talking about farmers and SME. So how can we create opportunity to accelerate action through the financial sector towards community, farmers, all, the whole supply chain of biodiversity, value chains, all of that? Thanks.
Yeah, this we call this matchmaking platform. We have a very comprehensive steps and also a system to support this initiative. And then this is really important. Personally, I joined several conferences in the past, and I helped. Before I was assigned in Canada, I worked in Manila, Philippines, for almost 10 years. So personally, I joined these conferences several times, and I really we didn't charge anything to these SMEs or farmers. It's like we take this our social responsibility, and then we spend for the conference, everything, logistics, but we don't charge anything. So, but after that conference, when we see the SMEs from different countries shake hands on the stage, I'm really proud of it. And then the global biodiversity framework, I think, is really, really important. I know now is a critical moment because now the final negotiation continue this week for the global diversity framework. And as a banker in this financial sector, I believe that there are at least three opportunities there if this the framework agreed by the party concerned. Number one is the financial industries, or the players in the financial industries will build the common strategies and the goals. This actually is same as you mentioned just now. And when I work in Manila, I know that the Central Bank of the Philippines also issued the code is a sustainable supervisory framework. So that's including the sustainable growth of the banks, and also how to support the sustainable growth of the economy. So this is one, and all the banks in the Philippines build their own goals. And when I just joined the Bank of China Canada 2 months ago, and I visited our partners in this market. It's really good companies in Canada, especially the investment management companies in Canada. I'm very happy to learn that they build their own goals in terms of green assets, green financing. But however, if you see the goals, that is different. So with this framework, I believe all the banks or investment assets management managers or insurance companies will build the same goal in line with the framework. I think this is also good for the financial sector to work together on this protecting biodiversity laws. And the second point is this is strategy and also like the milestones or the goals, but how to implement. And I also found that different banks have their different approaches of the measures in terms of implementation. And I believe that with this framework, and all the banks can work together on the standard, operational standard. I think this is really important. I know that, as I mentioned just now, Bank of China has developed like credit risk policy to protect the biodiversity for over 70 industries. But different banks may have a different strategy or goals and different operational procedures. With this framework, I believe all the banks can work together for standard operational procedures. I think that is really important. And then I hope that all the banks in the world work together to support biodiversity-related green projects. So we have the common goals, we have common procedures. And the last one, with this framework, I think it's also very important to increase awareness. Yes, 2 days or yesterday, I was interviewed by the local TV, television, and then the journalist asked me several questions. One is, what is biodiversity? And why Bank of China issued biodiversity-related green bonds? So it seems that this, biodiversity, yes, the professors, researchers, and then some business companies know that. But I think with this framework, it will definitely increase the awareness of the society about the importance of biodiversity. So I think I do hope that I know it's still ongoing, but I hope that this framework will be agreed by the concerned party as soon as possible. It will benefit not only the business, but also the whole society in the world. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And I think several of you have talked about common methodologies, common strategies, and common language. Actually, language is a very difficult thing. I mean, we all speak English, but when you're talking about language in the UN world and in our decision language and our treaty language, and then the same words are used completely differently in the private sector. So it's really something that common language, common standards, SOPs. I hope something like that will be built going forward. But one of the questions, staying in the financial field, Jason, may I ask you, does biodiversity, and Jun just talked about biodiversity and awareness, and people don't really know about what biodiversity is. Does it mean anything in the financing world? Does it mean, what does it mean in terms of climate engagement and relationships? Do we think that mainstreaming of biodiversity will happen within financial institutions? Is this the end of business as usual? Are we going to something new, a new paradigm shift in businesses? Thanks.
So is it going to mean something? Yes. I think it's going to broaden the scope of the sort of conversations, partnerships, outcomes, what's viewed as a successful outcome, the targets, the measures, that financial services, on the company side, on the client side, what they'll build into the dialogue right from the beginning. I think we've heard about it a number of times today. The importance of mandatory disclosure and assessment is just, it cannot be understated, because that's what's going to provide a level playing field for everybody. That's what's going to allow you to understand where are the problems, where are the gaps, where are there opportunities on either side of the fence, whether you're a financial services company or you're a provider of services, or you're a buyer and an acquirer of services. I think that's really, really important. In terms of, the beginning of the end is an interesting phrase, right? Because I think business as usual does evolve. The problem is sometimes it takes a long time to evolve and catch up. And so I don't think it's the beginning of the end. I think it's the beginning of the evolution. And we'll see some companies will get on this quickly. Some clients and their expectations will get on it quickly. But it's going to take a while for for everybody, the bar to rise on everybody. If I put that in the insurance world, which is relevant for me, in the property and casualty insurance space, I think that making progress on this means that clients are going to be able to see the impact, and that they're going to be able to question the impact and the dependencies of the companies that they do business with. The really interesting thing for me is, are they going to make purchasing decisions that are based on that? How important is that between different companies going to be? Because like many industries, price is often the number one driver of consumer choices. Yes, there's brand. Yes, there's lots of other variables but actually, for the next few years in particular, if we all generally believe the world economy has got its challenges ahead, price becomes increasingly important. And we know there's a difference between, cheap price and how you can manufacture that cheap price, and what goes into manufacturing a price that has more complexity with it, has more consideration for biodiversity or other factors, and what that does on price. And then as an insurance company and as a provider, what we do every day is we underwrite and we price risk. And so my hope is that, if we bring biodiversity considerations into our underwriting and our pricing and our engagement with customers, it's going to help them understand what they do and the impact that has on nature, and therefore what that impact has on their insurance premium and the coverage that they get. And that might seem quite granular, but it will be very real and very pragmatic for customers. So helping them understand, just like if I drive a car today, I understand, or my insurance company will help me understand, if I have young drivers in the household, chances are they need to pay a bit more in premium or a lot more in premium because they have more accidents. And I think bringing biodiversity and nature-based thinking into that part of the dialogue and the process is going to be really important.
Thanks a lot. I think this is a very interesting conversation, or at least a point that you've raised about pricing risk. And I wonder if that can somehow be linked with the mandatory disclosures also, and which then can bring a level playing field in terms of price. Because I know that in the climate debate, they are thinking about what, if you include emissions into the pricing, it becomes a very, the price changes immediately. It's not no more as inexpensive as it is being sold. So I wonder if there is something between all of these aspects that can be joined and look at biodiversity and nature loss included in a pricing, or at least at a time of a disclosure. And then we can look at it, in the long term, if it will impact anything. I will ask the last question from Dax, because it is very fascinating for me, and I'm sure everybody here, that you started off as a very successful technology company, but you have given that up to join this side of the fence where I'm working, and I've been doing this for 30 years. And while we were on this panel, I was trying to think whether I would ever join that side. And so, so far my answer to myself was no, but I would like to hear your views on this. How did you make that decision? What motivated you and got you to where you are here? And what, fulfills you in the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think one thing that's interesting. All right. I've been asked, the question of, what is similar about, leading Lightspeed and working with our customers, and I'll talk about the customers in a second, and what you're doing now with conservationists and in the environmental space. At Lightspeed, we worked with entrepreneurs at the SMB level, but the more complex end, we work with retail businesses, independently owned retail businesses, and independently owned hospitality businesses, and we were giving them the tools to be able to reach their full potential as small business owners. And I feel like when I'm working with conservationists, when I'm working with some of these NGOs, they're entrepreneurs too. They've got drive. They're trying to do the impossible with very limited resources, often not very formed budgets, and so on. And we're trying to, of course, change that. We're trying to put the odds in their favor, put the odds in the favor of biodiversity and in favor of these ecosystems. Let them plan. But I really relate to the struggles of, first of all, related to the struggles of the small business entrepreneurs. They're creating so much value. They're creating vibrance in our cities and communities. These are the locally owned businesses. And so I related to that as a startup founder, that those struggles of building something from scratch, and I see that in the efforts being made by conservationists. It's a difficult space. You experience a lot of loss. You could be protecting an area to see it on fire, to see it mowed down. You can see animals that have lost their mother to poaching, and you're now rescuing the orphans. And you see these week after week, and it takes, I think, some of the most special among us to do that. So it's an honor to get into the field with them and to understand that struggle, to understand why they do it, and that gives us the motivation to do more. Now, I think how we're selecting our projects is by finding these change makers that we can all relate to. I just did a press conference here in the other room with Paul Rosalie of Jungle Keepers. I met him in person last summer in June of 2021. I would have never dreamed that 18 months later we'd be announcing a 5-year plan with him and a $3.5 million donation to do here at the UN. But him telling his story shows that anyone, he was just a kid from New York that went down to Peru to co-found Jungle Keepers with 2 indigenous Peruvian leaders and a woman from Montreal, Dina Zuhulajas. And it's amazing how inspiring that is, because we are in an age where people are aware of the challenges. Maybe there's more awareness that can happen around some of the environmental challenges, but I think we're all aware for the most part. But I think one of the real challenges is that individual people don't think much can be done, or they don't believe that anything that they can do is going to make a difference. So to put these really transformational figures, to give them the resources and to actually put them forward in documentary films. We're working on our 4th. We've put out 3 short documentaries on some of our early projects, working on a 4th. It's a way to show all people that individuals can make a difference, that if we were 8 billion change makers in terms of mindset instead of 8 billion individualists, we would have a very different picture in terms of biodiversity on this planet. We would have a very different picture in terms of climate action and climate change. So that, I think, is sort of motivating, because the solution for all of our problems in nature come from the heart. They come from people, and it's igniting that inside of people that I think we can contribute to.
So one of the things that you said really, resonates with me, because it is these single people, change makers, that are doing something that makes us feel good also when we meet them, or we see the projects they're doing. One of these is in Kenya, where I live, in Nairobi. We have an orphanage for elephants, and the good news is that there are less and less orphans from poaching now, which used to be there 2-3 years ago, and there are more now from human wildlife conflict and the drought. But they rescue the elephants, they look after them, and then rewild them.
Right.
And every time I'm feeling down or depressed, I drive to the Sheldrick Center and see the elephants, and
They
I
do
feel
amazing
so
work
happy.
at the Sheldrick Center. It's incredible.
So I feel,
when you see people doing things, and when you prove that things can be done, then it's like we can all make sure that things are happening. One more story. There's this woman, Suzanne, in Trinidad. We just went down there in June. 30 years ago, as these leatherback turtle mothers were reaching the beach, and they can only lay eggs at age 30. The local community was poaching, taking the limbs from these mothers, and she fist fought them on the beach and converted that community over time through education into an ecotourism community. So some of those young men are now some of the leaders of that new transformed community, and that's through one woman's effort to not let a species go extinct. So to tell those stories is, I think, a real privilege.
Yes, thank you so much. So can we give a big hand to our panelists? It's not ended. You can ask any questions you want from them, but first, may I call on L'Oreal if they are here? Please, you wanted to say something to us and tell us a little bit about biodiversity work that you're doing and some of your ambitions.
The first point, I would like to congratulate all the panelists on all what you are doing. I think L'Oréal, as leader, with leadership come responsibility. We talk about responsibility, accountability. I really return the keyword you share with us. It's all about mobilization in order to gain scale up. And us also, we have signed the MacArthur Pact, and we commit to have 100% of recyclable or reusable, and we are promoting highly refill also when we talk about plastic. Also, what we do in terms of biodiversity, in fact, for us, biodiversity is a tremendous source of innovation. Today, we use 60% of natural ingredients. Tomorrow, by 2030, we will create what we are calling green science, which means 95% of natural ingredients are from circular economy. It's a total shift of mindset, believe me. It's mean changing radically all our portfolio, and we commit to have 100% of these natural ingredients sustainably sourced, which means zero deforestation, but also sharing benefit with local community. As many of you, so we transform our business from inside, respecting the land use, but also the aquatic ecosystem. But we want to go further beyond our business. This is why we have also a fund for nature regeneration, also in partnership with Mirova. Strongly focus. We have one project on agriculture, regenerative agriculture, to help and support the farmer in this transition. And we have also a strong policy in terms of respect of local community. I have a great example. One of the ingredients we use the most is a shea butter. And we are doing a sustainable sourcing, partnering with local NGOs. That is fundamental. We have shared about each one of your different expertise. So first point, us as big company, we need local NGO. We need to speak with community because they know better than us how to do it the right way. So for example, the shea butter, it's a top 10 ingredient. We have this product, this ingredient in 1,200 products in our portfolio, and we benefit 35,000 women in Burkina Faso, which is not a details. We have other examples, as Centella asiatica in Madagascar. So for us, biodiversity is a source of innovation where we have to share benefit with local community, otherwise it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. We have to integrate biodiversity inside our business. So we are doing so with the green science. And it's not easy because we have to do it totally the right way, the right sourcing, respecting aquatic system, and we have to go further beyond the business. And we have signed the Make It Mandatory amendment, of course, and you can count on us to do our best and never give up to improve.
Thank you so much. And I think I read a case study many years ago about the work that you are doing on shea butter and the women. I mean, it's been, hand in hand. And you also did a lot on benefit sharing on that. So I think I read that a long time ago. So you were ahead of the curve on this even then. So now may I open up the floor for any questions that there may be from you to the panelists? Hopefully not to me, just the panelists. No? So then I will ask everyone to give me a 1 second.
Testing. I had a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I know it's hard to see with all the lights. My name is Neelam. I'm over here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually a school teacher, And I'm here representing the children of California. And I really resonated with the story that the panelists shared about someone with a passion who is just ready to take action. And I did that. I actually planted the first 3 Miyawaki forests in the schools, their schoolyard forests in North America. And I won the Time Magazine Innovative Teacher of the Year award for that. Thank you. And now my goal is similar to the story that you shared. My goal is to scale this project so that, because I have children who are so excited about taking action, they really want to do something. They're tired of seeing all of the news. They know what's happening. Even 6-year-olds are crying about the planet, and I'm here to represent them. And I'm very passionate about this, but I feel like we need to harness the army of children that we have, that we continually underestimate their wisdom and their capability. And we just recently, on Thursday, just before I got here, we planted 1 more schoolyard forest. And 300 children came and planted 700 trees in 4 hours. And it was remarkable, the kind of work that we've been doing. And so my question to the panelists is, what would you recommend to someone like me, who's just a humble school teacher, who has children who are sort of beckoning to her and wanting to help bring this to the children of the world?
Thank you so much. Please.
I have children of my own. They're older though. They're still in school, but they're 19 and 21. And that's a generation that will be very much impacted, is also very much aware. And actually were some of them walking the streets last week. So there were a lot of discussions around the dinner table. Recently, we had at Veolia someone from the GIEC, and I'm forgetting the name, so I'm sorry about that, who came to present to the top executives. And he said something that really resonated with me, and this is something I'd like to share because it might help. He said, you know what? Every gesture counts, and everybody says that. But he says it's like a diet. When you're on diet, which I've never been, but many of my friends have, when you don't go to the gym one day and you have pizza at night, the next morning you get up and you go to the gym, and you skip the pizza or you skip the Coke or the whatever. You don't just give up. So this isn't the time to give up. This is the time to act.
I would just say it's amazing what you're doing. I think focus their energies in a positive way. I think it's very easy when you look around that activism in any kind, when it's positive and it comes from a space of paying it forward and trying to make a positive difference, is really powerful. I think the danger with, the challenge with young people is all of that enthusiasm sometimes can be channeled towards something that, perhaps loses sight of the cause. And it's brilliant. I mean, I have an 11-year-old son. His experience with watching David Attenborough is very different to mine. I remember watching David Attenborough as a child. It was really positive and it was really enthusiastic. It's hard to watch David Attenborough these days, right? It really is. It's a very different message. But I think channeling children's focus to very positive outcomes and what they can do, makes a real difference.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Make them share their enthusiasm on TikTok. So yeah, spread the word, make them spread the word, and create maybe a movement on TikTok so they can share with everyone. It becomes like a meme that becomes viral. Because that's the point. Like they spend so much time on social media, and they get impacted by emotions. And if they see the emotions that your kids are having when they're planting trees, and maybe you can make it viral.
I think these are all very good suggestions. Anyone else would? Are there any other? Please go ahead.
Yes, I find it inspiring to hear these anecdotes and 1,000 points of light and your comments encouraging. I'm wondering a final question about the systemic facilitation, though, through the banks and the insurance companies. We've spoken with other people who say that perhaps with natural disasters increasing, both climate and biodiversity loss related, that some business, some sectors will become uninsurable. And of course, the banks do their assessment before they lend money. I wonder, aside from raising the rates, raising the premiums, can you lower the premiums for those who are environmentally responsible? Can you make the loan terms from the bank easier, longer windows, more long-term thinking? I'm addressing my question to the systems in the room. Thank you.
Well, I'll start with insurance. I mean, everybody always focuses on when their insurance premiums go up, right? But some people's insurance premiums do go down occasionally. And, I think the key thing about, getting more disclosure and more transparent about what companies are doing and what businesses and individuals are doing, absolutely you should see. I'll give you an example. Aviva offers a discount for people buying electric vehicles. We offer a discount for people that are upgrading to electric vehicles. It's a very, very small example, but I fully expect that we will differentiate, as I said, our underwriting and our pricing for people that show responsible caring for and consideration for biodiversity, the nature, the impact they have on nature. We're at the very earliest stages of that, but we've seen it in other parts of insurance. And I think in banking, I'm not an expert on the banking sector, but you see it with other variables. So it's natural to believe that these nature-based, biodiversity-based variables will come in and they will impact pricing both up and down for people.
The answer is yes. Actually, in our practice, we lower our loan rates to the projects, especially project financing, for we call it green project, definitely including the biodiversity. And then this, I think, is also common practice in the banking industry, not only in China, but also in Canada. So if you want to borrow money from Bank of China, Canada, please let me know. I will give a very competitive price to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. My name is Francine. I'm from Brazil. I work with ABS, Access and Benefit Sharing. And my question is to L'Occitane and maybe L'Oréal. How the companies works on access and benefit sharing around the world? I know something in Brazil, but I would like to know also more about the ABS laws around the world. Thank you.
Bom dia, amiga. In fact, I spent 12 years in Brazil, and I was the Chief Sustainability Officer in Brazil. So how do we work in terms of sourcing? We have a program that is called Solidarité Sourcing, and we promote inclusion, especially on women and vulnerable community, and we promote also fair income, fair trade, in fact. How do we do? In fact, in the decision process, we were talking about that. In fact, whatever we buy, we put inclusion and respect on forest as a non-negotiable criteria. And we always favorize the suppliers that guarantee and secure that, first point. So it's a kind of engaging the ecosystem and prioritizing the one who are doing good. Second point, and it's not easy, it's what we have shared with the shea butter, but what we do also with Centella Asiatica. I have learned also the Prakashi, Murumuru, Babatsu sourcing in Brazil, and Carnaúba. We partner with local NGO. We know that we know how to do amazing and safe, great beauty product, but we don't know the local need. So we partner with the one who know the local NGO. We listen to the community and we listen to their specific needs. So for example, for the sourcing in Brazil of Murumuru, We have partnered with a local community. We help them to buy technical machine to improve the value of their extraction, seed extraction. So it's about partnership and having the humility to work with a true expert, local community, and NGO. It's not easy. It took a long time, but this is the economy of resilience and sustainable growth and responsibility we should build all together. So I don't know if I have a response to the right way, but being strict on the non-negotiable and partnering and listen to the local community and the experts, the NGO, to have the great sourcing and preserving biodiversity, but also benefiting the people around.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Would you like to add?
Yes, so fair trade, of course, but also North-North fair trade, because it works also with northern countries. Investing in the know-how, in the ecosystem, and as it was said, it's not all about investing in human capital, but it's really the whole ecosystem. And so that's the first step. But we directly buy only a few % of our raw materials. Many of them go through many companies before us. And so while we're still in process of B Corp certification, and we looked at something thanks to B Corp that was a bit of a blind side for us, is a living wage, and scope 1, 2, and 3 living wage. So now what we are working on is measuring the living wage that the communities we're working directly, but also indirectly, and also our consumers, every communities that are within our value chain, and where we are, first always measure, and then gradually go to at least the living wage, the living standard that those community needs. And that's something that is right now in the measuring phase. We're just starting, but it will be a huge focus for us. And we are discovering things where we behind. And so that's at least it's a great focus and like road for us.
Thanks so much. Are there any other questions? I can't see, so Bianca, you have a question.
Yes, well, it's not. It's an invitation actually. With the secretariat, my name is Bianca, and I lead the program, the engagement with business program here with the secretariat. And I'm very happy to see you here with us, because this is actually my 6th business forum. I used to be a business representative, so 20 years in the private sector. And it was very hard to get CEOs into the business forum in the CBD COP. I know there is a competition for this type of events in the climate, but for the biodiversity, we were struggling. So this year, having you with us is already a good indication that we are heading in the right direction. There is a clear understanding and awareness, but we need to get to the next level. We need to get more people interested. As much as biodiversity is growing in awareness, if we don't get CEOs to do the top-down things that you guys do, the magic happens only when you give the go-ahead to your sustainability teams, to your planning team. So it's just really to convey the message that we are privileged to have you here. We're very happy, but we want your support in doing more, not only in your businesses, but also leading the way with other organizations. And if you allow us, we would like to have leadership dialogues throughout the next year and the next year, to see if, by COP16, we have 15 CEOs and not just 6 or 5 or 6. So it's just really to appreciate and to invite you to be with us in the journey between now and COP16, when we probably will have more tools, we will have more solutions, and we will already be in the 2nd year of our journey towards 2030, and to see if we are able to deliver on those goals and targets. So it's just really an invitation. But thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. Anyone else? No. So this time, really no, right? Okay. So can we start with you, Jason? 1 second wrap up. Or 1 minute.
1 minute might be easier.
Okay, 1 minute.
Look, I really appreciate, to just build on Bianca's point. It's great that we're here and there's a few of us here. It'd be great next time that there's more. And the thing I would say is that, I have one on my team who, not when he's talking about biodiversity, when he's talking about his day-to-day business, says it takes a village. And sometimes a village works well together and sometimes the village gets a bit stuck and falls over itself. And I think that's never been more true than with respect to biodiversity and nature. And so, it takes a village. And as I said earlier, I think, a bit of healthy competition is a good thing. And we should be holding companies and corporations and individuals and governments out there as who's doing well, who's not doing well enough, because nobody wants to be at the bottom of the leaderboard. And right now, in many things around climate, Canada is not nearly as good on the leaderboard as many people would believe that to be. And actually, when you look at the peer group that Canada sits with, it's not a very impressive leader group, right? So I think going out there, being really clear about the importance of resilience and, whether it's in the insurance industry for me and having resilient economies, resilient communities and building back better after catastrophes, and then investing in trying to mitigate the future losses that we know are going to happen. Just that transparency and as I say, everybody doing their part is so important.
Yeah, it's really. I think it's really important for the CEO to sit on this stage for discussing these challenges. And then, thank you for the invitation. And then, probably next year we may share you more about what we are doing or what we will do. Actually, now we are working on. As I mentioned just now, this is a procedures level, means we are building the standard, the format to make risk assessment or credit assessment on the application of our clients. And then if any projects they want us to finance not good for the ecosystem, we will not finance. So, but we have a credit analysis. They are not expert at the biodiversity. So we would like to develop like the details, like the format. It's not just click box, but it's yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And then I think it's much easier for our staff, our officers to understand the importance of biodiversity. And then if this is a project really good for the ecosystem, and then definitely we'll lower our interest rate, especially the loan rates or the fees to the applicants. So we are still working on that, not finished, but next year, if you invite me there, and I will share these details with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anouk.
So shortly, Veolia made the planet and the communities in which it works part of its purpose. It's very natural because of the work we do in water and energy and managing waste. But we encourage every business to do the same. I am pretty sure, and I'm listening to L'Oréal and L'Occitane and even in the industry I used to work in, insurance and financial services, are making it part of their purpose because we don't have a choice. So that's what that would be the one sentence I would say, and then act on it.
I think that the business leaders can contribute so much to this conversation, and I'm encouraged about what Madame Maruma said, that she feels business leaders are stepping up because. Yeah, it's such an important driver, and I think that for business itself, being the founder and CEO of Lightspeed, I know that when a company has purpose at its center, that means a lot to employees that can have a lot of choices, and also to customers who have a lot of choices. Brands and companies that that have meaning and purpose in their actions and in their choices and decisions are going to be the brands and companies that people want to align themselves with, whether they are employers or brands they buy from. And I think that for us at Age of Union, it's in our plan to bring more business leaders and tech leaders into the conservation conversation. And I think that this is, the key to making real progress.
Adrian, last word.
Ooh la la, last. It's going to be a tough one. Is okay? We are living the 6 max extension right now. We are. But it's okay. The planet will survive, actually. The planet survived through 5 mass extinction. It will survive through the 6th one. It will. What about humankind? I don't know. So the question is, what is the future we want to give to our children? That's what we need to have in mind.
So I completely agree with you. When people talk about there is no planet B, it's actually a false statement, because planet B is planet A, planet C. It is this planet. It is our humanity, our future that is really being determined now. So I agree with you completely. So on that note, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Can we give a big applause to our panelists? And thank you so much for taking the trouble and making the effort to be here for biodiversity. I am sure that this will be appreciated by future generations. You started it here. It's a historic moment. So thank you very much for being here.
Before you all rush off, just a quick announcement that there is a reception for the Business and Biodiversity Forum at 6 p.m. in room 710A, which is on the 3rd floor. It's very confusing, 710A, but 3rd floor. And I just wanted to thank everyone here for being here, for participating, for listening, for doing the hard work. And also massive thanks to Bianca Brazil for organizing all of this and just being this inspiration and just pulling this all together. It's incredible. And I'm equally inspired and just really taking home these messages that we've got here today. So thank you all. Please join us for drinks, and please join us for another chat, and keep on doing the hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.